Good evening, and welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're beginning with a story that has every Kenyan talking, planning, and frankly, worrying. Kenya Power has just issued a major notification to its customers nationwide. A 24-hour power outage response and inspection protocol is now in effect. This isn't about a single blackout. This is about a fundamental shift in how the utility giant handles the electricity that powers our homes, businesses, and lives. For the next 12 minutes, we're going to dive deep into what this means, why it's happening now, and the fierce debate it has ignited across the country. We'll hear from frustrated consumers, industry experts, and government officials. This is more than a service bulletin. It's a stress test for Kenya's economic ambitions and a window into the complex world of energy politics. Let's get into it. First, let's understand exactly what Kenya Power announced. The company stated that, effective immediately, customers experiencing a power outage should expect a full 24-hour window for restoration. That's one full day. Previously, the unofficial standard, though often unmet, was a matter of hours. The notification clarifies this is to allow for comprehensive safety inspections of the grid following any fault. Kenya Power's managing director, in a press briefing, argued this is a necessary, proactive measure. He cited aging infrastructure, increased illegal connections, and the need for enhanced public safety following several incidents. The company claims this systematic approach will, in the long run, lead to a more reliable grid. But for a small business owner in Nairobi's industrial area or a student studying for exams in Kisumu, 24 hours without power isn't a proactive measure, it's an active crisis. To understand the scale of this, we need to look at the numbers. Kenya Power serves approximately 9.2 million customers. Even a minor fault affecting just 1% of that base would leave nearly 100,000 Kenyans in the dark for a day. Industry analysts we spoke to suggest the average fault rate is significantly higher, especially during the rainy seasons. Let's visualize the potential impact. Consider a typical month with reported faults. If we apply this new 24-hour protocol to those historical fault events, the cumulative customer hours without power becomes staggering. That visualization shows a hypothetical but realistic scenario. A month with 150 significant faults, each affecting an average of 5,000 customers. Under the old, aspirational response time of 6 hours, that's 4.5 million customer hours of darkness. Under the new 24-hour protocol, that number soars to 18 million customer hours. That's a fourfold increase in disruption. A senior economist at the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis told us, this isn't just an inconvenience. This is a direct tax on productivity. For the formal and especially the informal sector, which constitutes a vast portion of our economy, reliable power is oxygen. This policy risks suffocating growth. He estimates that for every sustained 10% increase in outage duration, small and medium enterprise revenue could drop by a corresponding 3 to 5%. But Kenya Power and its defenders, including some within the Ministry of Energy, present a starkly different perspective. They frame this not as a reduction in service, but as an investment in future stability. Their argument hinges on the concept of systemic risk. They point to major grid failures in other African nations, caused by cascading faults that weren't properly diagnosed. A stitch in time saves 9, one engineer from the company told us off the record. We are choosing to spend 24 hours to thoroughly investigate a problem, rather than risk a quick fix that fails again in a week, or worse, causes a regional blackout that lasts for days. They also highlight the safety aspect. Electrocutions from faulty lines, often made worse by illegal taps, remain a tragic reality. A comprehensive inspection regime, they argue, could save lives. This debate is happening against a fascinating political backdrop. Remember, our current date is January 23, 2026. President William Ruto's administration has staked its reputation on a bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Reliable, affordable energy is the bedrock of that plan. How does a 24-hour outage window fit with that vision? Our political analyst notes the tension. President Ruto is in a difficult position. He must balance the urgent demands of consumers and businesses with the long-term, capital-intensive needs of a state-owned utility. Kenya Power is a perennial financial headache, plagued by debt and inefficiency. This new policy could be seen as a blunt admission of those deep-seated problems. The political risk is high if the public perceives this as the government sanctioning poor service. And the public perception is indeed fiery. On social media, the hashtag 24-hour darkness is trending. Memes compare Kenya Power's notification to getting a 24-hour warning for a punch in the face. More seriously, consumer rights groups are mobilizing. The Consumer Federation of Kenya has announced plans to file a class action suit, arguing the new policy constitutes a unilateral and substantial degradation of the service contract without consumer consent or compensation. Where is our 10% discount for this reduced service? Asked the Federation's chairperson during a protest outside Kenya Power's headquarters. If they are admitting they cannot provide power reliably, then our tariffs, which have risen consistently, must reflect that failure. The mention of tariffs is crucial. Kenya Power's last tariff review, approved by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, resulted in an average increase of about 10% for domestic consumers. This graphic shows the trajectory. When you layer a significant service reduction on top of a recent price increase, the public outrage is mathematically understandable. It creates a powerful narrative of paying more for less, a political poison for any administration. Let's broaden our view. How does Kenya's power situation compare regionally? Our neighbors have their own struggles. Tanzania has invested heavily in generation, but faces distribution challenges. Uganda grapples with seasonal hydropower variability. Ethiopia has massive generation potential but political instability. However, few have institutionalized such a lengthy official response time. An energy consultant who works across East Africa told us, the announcement itself is unusual. Most utilities would try to manage expectations quietly, not enshrine a 24-hour delay in official policy. It signals either extraordinary transparency or a level of systemic weakness that can no longer be hidden. This story also intersects with other news shaping Kenya this week. In a tragic reminder of the risks in our beautiful landscapes, a French tourist died in a paragliding accident in Elgeyo Marakwet. While unrelated to power, it underscores how infrastructure and safety protocols, or the lack thereof, can have dire consequences. Separately, the international development charity ActionAid announced a major shift, moving away from its traditional child sponsorship model to decolonize its work. This speaks to a global reevaluation of power dynamics. Who has it, who gives it, and on what terms? In a way, Kenya Power's announcement is its own recalibration of power dynamics. It is explicitly transferring the burden of risk and waiting time from the corporation to the consumer. So, what are the potential solutions or paths forward? We've identified three main schools of thought. First, the technological fix. Proponents argue for massive, accelerated investment in smart grid technology. Smart meters that report faults instantly, self-healing grid sections that can isolate problems, and drones for rapid line inspection could dramatically cut diagnosis and repair times. But this requires billions of shillings Kenya Power doesn't have. Second, the regulatory fix. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority could reject the policy as anti-competitive or against the public interest, forcing Kenya Power back to the drawing board. Third, the market fix. This crisis could finally provide the impetus for true liberalization of the distribution sector, allowing other companies to compete in specific zones, using Kenya Power's wires for a fee. This is controversial but has precedent in telecommunications. Each option has fierce detractors. The tech fix is too expensive and slow. The regulatory fix could be seen as political interference undermining a state corporation. The market fix risks creating a two-tier system where wealthy neighborhoods get premium service while poorer areas are left with the struggling monopoly. A former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy summed up the dilemma for us. We are trying to solve a 21st century problem with a 20th century utility model. The grid is old, the demand is growing exponentially, and the financial model is broken. A 24-hour response time is a symptom of that trilemma. Until we have an honest national conversation about the true cost of reliable, safe, and expanding electricity, we will be applying band-aids to a broken leg. As we conclude, let's reflect on what this means for you, the viewer. If you are a homeowner, this means planning for the possibility of a day-long outage. Investing in an uninterruptible power supply for your router, keeping power banks charged, and perhaps reconsidering that freezer full of food. If you are a business owner, this is a direct threat to your operations and bottom line. A backup generator or solar system moves from a luxury to a critical business expense. For the nation, this is a moment of reckoning. President Ruto's administration and Kenya Power's leadership are betting that short-term pain will lead to long-term gain. They are betting that Kenyans will accept a day in the dark today for a more stable grid tomorrow. But in a country with soaring ambitions, where the digital economy is hailed as the future, and where every shilling counts, that is a monumental bet. The lights aren't just off in homes, they're flashing amber on Kenya's economic dashboard. The response to this policy in the coming weeks will be a crucial indicator of the public's tolerance for austerity in service of future stability. It's a complex equation balancing safety, reliability, cost, and political will. One thing is certain: the next time your lights flicker and go out, the clock starts ticking on a full 24 hours. How that time passes will define not just your evening, but potentially the energy future of the nation. For Kenya News Update Today, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today for more in-depth coverage of the stories that matter.